Therefore, the blood pattern on the front room wall was caused by blood spatter from the hammer or the axe. The last blood spatter we have were the blood drops in the east room. The blood droplets in the east room were clearly from a standing drip. They were clearly from a standing drip because in the picture it shows that it has that it was central while also having tails going outward from the middle. So when there was the middle, when it was dripping, it hit the ground and went out because it was a standing drip. Therefore, the blood droplets in the east room were clearly from a standing drip. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ava Watkins. I have a master's degree in criminology from Harvard University, and I've been working for the Los Angeles Police Department as a forensic Scientologist for 5 years now. I have taken and passed a specialty course on footprints and hair analysis. Here we have Alexander Smith's hair strand, and we will be comparing it to evidence P, which is the hair strand found on the east room window. We can see that both strands are straight, and we can see that both are gray because of the color that it's exhibited. We can also see that there is a continuous medulla pattern, and there is an amorphous medulla structure. And we can also tell that the scale pattern shown here is intricate, shown on both. Because of this, we can conclude that Alexander Smith's hair strand is comparable to the hair strand found at the east room window. Here we have the control sample of Anton Geisler's hair, and we will be comparing it to the evidence, which is evidence Q, which is the hair strand found at the east room window. So with both hairs, we can conclude that both hair strands are straight because of the shape they have. We can also conclude that this color presented resembles a blonde hair color. They also both have a continuous medulla hair pattern, which is seen throughout here. And we also can tell that the medulla structure is amorphous and there is an intricate scale pattern on both hairs. Because of this, we can conclude that the hair sample of Anton Geisler's is comparable to evidence Q, which is the hair strand on the east room window. Here we will be looking at the control sample of Rebecca Smith's hair and comparing it to evidence R, which is the hair strand found on the front room tea table. Looking at the hair, we can tell that both strands are curly because of the shape they hold. We can also conclude that the hair color is gray because of the color that is shown. We can also see that there is an absence of a medulla pattern and structure, and they both have an intricate scale pattern shown throughout the hair strand. Because of this, we can conclude that Rebecca Smith's hair is comparable to the hair strand found at the front room tea table. Here we will be comparing Mariana Bott's hair to evidence S, which is the hair strand found on the front room floor. Looking at this hair, we can conclude that both strands are curly because of the J shape they both hold. We can also tell that both hair strands are brown because of the color they show. We can also tell that there is an intermedulla pattern, a uniserial medulla structure, and an intricate scale pattern found on both hair strands. Because of this, we can conclude that Mariana Bott's hair is comparable to evidence S, which is the hair strand found on the front room floor. Here we'll be looking at Frances Curran's hair and comparing it to evidence T1, which is the hair strand found on the front porch. Looking at both strands, we can conclude that they are curly because of the J shape that they both hold. We can see that there is a continuous medulla on both of them, an amorphous medulla structure, and an intricate scale pattern. Because of this, we can conclude that Frances Curran's hair is comparable to evidence T1, which is the hair strand on the front porch. Here is Henry Bauer's hair, and we are comparing it to evidence T2, which is the hair strand found on the front porch. Looking at both these hairs, we can tell that they are straight, and we can also tell by the color that they are both brown. They both have a continuous medulla and amorphous medulla structure, and they both have an intricate scale pattern. Because of this, we can tell that Henry Bauer's hair strand is comparable to evidence T2, which is the hair strand on the front porch. Shown here we have a dog hair, which we will be comparing to evidence U2, which is a hair strand on the money chest. We can tell that both hairs are straight, And with the color, we can conclude that the hair is brown. There is a fragmented medulla pattern, an amorphous medulla structure, and a coronal scale pattern. Because of this, we can conclude that the dog's hair strand matches evidence U2, which is a hair strand on the money chest. First footprint I will be comparing is the footprint of Anton Geisler's found near the East Room window. Starting with Anton's footprint, we see that with the shoe he was wearing, there is a mark resembling this shape. If we look closely, we can see this mark right here on the heel of his shoe. Over here, we have a certain design pattern following where the toe starts to about the middle of his foot. If we look at the design of the footprint shown, we can see that this pattern is shown here as well. We can also see that faint patterns resembling this and this pattern can be seen over here and here. This shows that Anton's footprint and the footprint found near the East Room window is comparable. First footprint I will be comparing is the footprint of Anton Geisler's found near the East Room window. Starting with Anton's footprint, we see that with the shoe he was wearing, there is a mark resembling this shape. If we look closely, we can see this mark right here on the heel of his shoe. Over here, we have a certain design pattern following where the toe starts to about the middle of his foot. If we look at the design of the footprint shown, we can see that this pattern is shown here as well. We can also see that faint patterns resembling this and this pattern can be seen over here and here. This shows that Anton's footprint and the footprint found near the East Room window is comparable. Here we are looking at Anton Geisler's footprint, comparing it to the evidence of the footprint found near the workshop. Starting with Anton's footprint, we can see that we have a pattern starting here. And if we look at the evidence found near the workshop, we can see that same pattern throughout this part of the footprint found. Going back to Anton's, we can see this large pattern, almost like a hole in the footprint where the shoe did not cover the soil. We can find right over here in the footprint, matching that these two are very similar in shape. We can also see this long footprint pattern right here, and we can see that it is shown throughout this footprint over here. This concludes that Anton Geisler's footprint is comparable to the footprint found near the workshop. Here we have Henry Bauer's footprint, and we will be comparing it to the footprint found near the front porch. Looking at the big patterns in Henry Bauer's shoe print, we can see that up here and over here we have distinctive patterns that are found in his shoe print. Looking at the evidence found of this footprint, we can see that that same pattern is found in the same upper left-hand corner over here. If we look closely, we can see right there, that resembles this part over here. We can also see that down here is very lightly, we can see the same pattern where it divots over here and it divots right over here. Because of this, we can confirm that Henry Bauer's footprint is comparable to the footprint near the front porch.
Hello, my name is Sarah Rance, and I have a master's degree in criminology and a minor in forensic serology from the University of California, Berkeley. I have been working and been a part of the Contra Costa County Police Department for about 12 years. I have taken and passed many specialty courses, including DNA analysis, hair and fiber analysis, and fingerprint analysis. Along with being a part of the police department, I spend a considerable amount of time down in the forensic laboratories, specifically the fingerprint analysis lab. Alexander Smith's left thumb to the fingerprint on the money chest. One of the biggest giveaways are they have matching deltas, delta here and here. Same deltas can be found here and here. Again, the matching ridge endings can be found here. Same ridge ending is found here on the money chest print. And then in between that ridge ending and that delta to the right of the fingerprint is this interesting looking ridge ending. It looks like a fork, and then in the middle is a specific ridge ending. Here can be found that fork with the ridge ending in the middle. Now on to matching dots. We have an eye with the 2 dots here, a ridge ending with a dot in the middle, 2 dots, and another dot below those 2 dots. Same can be found here. Here's an eye with 2 dots. Next to it, 2 dots, ridge ending with a dot in the middle, 2 dots above and below that same dot found on both of these prints. Therefore, yes, you can say that Alexander Smith's left index finger is comparable to the fingerprint found on the money chest at the crime scene. Fingerprint is Anton Gessler's left index finger, which is a radial loop, and that is comparable to another fingerprint found on the hammer at the crime scene. This is also a radial loop. Here in the center, you can see a ridge ending with a dot in the center. The same can be found here, a ridge ending with a dot in the center. Another minutia is this scar. Scar can be found right there. Below that and to the right is another ridge ending with a larger dot in the center. Same can be found here, ridge ending with a larger dot in the center. On the same page as ridge endings, we see here a large ridge ending, and here we see the same large ridge ending. To the right of that, a smaller ridge ending, but still here, smaller ridge ending. And then above those are 2 forks, here and here, one forking out and the other forking down. Here can be seen forking out and forking down. On this print, we see a large trail to the left of the print of dots and ridge endings. Same trail can be seen here. Above that is another fork and a cutoff ridge ending or dot. Same fork, cutoff ridge ending can be seen here. And to those matching minutias, these 2 fingerprints are comparable. Print that I'll be comparing are Henry Bauer's left index finger to the print found on the hammer at the crime scene. Here you can see that it is an ulnar loop, and this one is also an ulnar loop. If you take a closer look, you can see they have matching deltas. A delta here is matching with this delta here. Also, a giveaway is right to the right of the delta is 2 dots, seen again here, 2 dots. Another thing specific are these 2 scars here and here, right above each other, again, right above that delta. They can also be seen here, 2 scars, right above that delta. To the left is a dot, almost in the center of the print, again, dot in the center of a print. Above that, you can see this interesting ridge ending, and again, that ridge ending is seen above the dot, right there. And then just above that is an interesting fork. That fork can be seen right above. Again, over here, fork seen right above. To the right of that is a ridge ending. Boom, right there. To the right, ridge ending. And right below that is a kidney bean looking dot. And right below that, again, a kidney bean looking dot. So you can say that the Henry Bauer's left index finger is comparable to the fingerprint found on the hammer. And is Marion Abbott's left thumb comparable to the fingerprint found on the teacup? They're both radial loops and have the matching minutia, 1 large scar here. Same scar can be found here. Above that, a dot here, another dot here, and a larger, interesting shaped dot above that. Same can be found here. Here is a ridge ending, 1 straight and 1 dual. Same ridge ending here, dual and single. Below that, a ridge ending and a dot. Same here, ridge ending, dot. Here, 2 dots. To the right of that, same 2 dots. Below that, 2 individual dots. Below that, the 2 individual dots. Back over to the left, a large ridge ending. To the left, larger ending, and below a very interesting blank space here with a small dot and a larger dot. Same here, blank space, small dot, larger dot. Zooming out, all the minutia matches to each of the minutia found. So these two are comparable. Anton Gessler's left thumbprint comparable to the fingerprint found on the east room window. They are both radial loops, and on top of that, they have two matching scars, one here and a longer one here, found here and here. Above that long scar, we have a ridge ending, and here we can find that same ridge ending. Adjacent to that ridge ending is another one. Ridge ending, adjacent to it, another one. And then in the center, they have a large ridge ending cut off here and here. Same one can be found, cut off here and here. Next to that, another ridge ending. Next to this, another ridge ending. Above that, a dot, dot, ridge ending, ridge ending. And yeah, another ridge ending here and dot below, ridge ending here and dot below. Due to these matching minutia, you can say that these two fingerprints are indeed comparable. So the first fingerprints that I'll be comparing are Alexander Smith's left index fingerprint to the fingerprint found on the workshop door. These two are comparable because here is a scar found in the lower right-hand corner. That same scar can be found on the lower right-hand corner here. This dot, 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 and dot, all four of these dots are comparable with this dot is comparable to this dot, this one to this one, this one to this one, and this one to this one here. These two dots adjacent to this funky looking ridge ending can be found here, two dots to the left of the ridge ending. Up here is an eye above the center. Here is also center. Above is this eye with, two openings. Eye with two openings. And to the right of that is this crescent moon shape ridge ending, also found here, crescent moon shape ridge ending. Above that are three dots. Same three dots can be found here, along with this dual ridge ending found right here, directly below a dot, dual ridge ending directly below a dot. So these minutia are comparable to the minutia found on the workshop door, and not to mention both of these prints are central pocket loops.
Hi, my name is Jenny Hughes, and I am the expert witness for DNA as well as the injury and autopsy report. I have a master's degree in forensics from Boston College, and I have been working with the FBI in Washington, D.C. I often work in the labs collecting and examining evidence, and recently for the past couple months I have been working in the morgue looking at victims' bodies and examining the injury reports. So, after many labs and research, I've concluded that the DNA found in blood pool A, which was found next to Alexander Smith's head, belongs to the DNA of Alexander Smith. They had the same exact pattern. I also found that the DNA in blood pool B, which was found next to Rebecca Smith, belongs to Rebecca because it matches the control from Rebecca's DNA exactly. The DNA I found in blood drop G, which was from the East Room window, matches Anton Geisler's DNA perfectly, and so that means the blood drop belongs to Anton Geisler. The blood droplets from the East Room floor, which are blood droplets J, match the control from Anton Geisler. Those are also from him, which they all had the same pattern, so this proves that the blood drops belong to him. The blood droplets on the hammer, blood droplets K, match the DNA pattern of Rebecca Smith, which proves that she was hit in the head with the hammer, leaving blood as well as her DNA. And for the autopsy and injury report, after examining both the bodies very closely, I noticed that Alexander Smith had major burns starting at his feet going all the way up to his hips or his ischium bone. These burns were due to the fact that he was either pushed or had fallen near the fireplace. From the look of it, it seems that the suspect had hit him over the head and he had fallen off of his chair into the fireplace. He also had large wounds on his skull. 2 of them were on the right side of his head and another on the back side. The wound on the back side of his head was so deep that it created brain damage, and this was most likely his cause of death. These wounds on his head were most likely from the hammer, which was found in the parlor. That hammer also had DNA from Rebecca Smith on the end of it, so we can assume that after hitting Alexander, the suspect hit Rebecca. Rebecca Smith had smaller burns on each side of her, which only affected the lateral sides of her leg. These burns were also due to the fire pit, and they weren't as severe, but they still played a part in her death. So now for the autopsy and injury report. After examining the bodies, I noticed that Alexander Smith had major burns starting from his feet going all the way up to his ischium bone. This was due to the fireplace that he had fallen in front of. It's difficult to say whether or not these burns were before or after death, but they were severe burns. So if they were before death, they would have been very painful. He also had large wounds on his skull. 2 of them were on the right side of his skull and another on the back side of his skull. The blow to the back side of his skull was the deepest blow, and it punctured his brain, causing brain damage. So this was most likely his cause of death, but it's still difficult to say. These wounds on his head were most likely from the hammer, which was found in the parlor, and that can be proven because Rebecca Smith DNA was found on the hammer. Rebecca Smith also had burns on her body, which were much less severe than Alexander Smith, but it is difficult to tell whether or not this was before or after death. These burns were found on the lateral sides of each leg. And along with Alexander Smith, she also had multiple wounds to the head, one being on the frontal bone of her skull and the other on the top of her head, but towards the right side. And the last one was closer to her right ear. These wounds were also most likely her cause of death, but it's still difficult to say.
Hi, my name is Jenny Hughes, and I'm here with Channel 7 News, standing outside of the crime scene of Alexander and Rebecca Smith's murders at Old Fields. They were brutally murdered the night of November 14th, 1842. We don't have much information, and we can't exactly go inside because they blocked off the whole crime scene, but I will keep you guys updated as much as I can. They currently have 4 suspects in custody, so make sure to lock your doors at night, and I will keep you guys updated. Thank you. This is Jenny Hughes signing off.
The prosecution believes that Anton Geisler is responsible for the murders of Alexander Smith and Rebecca Smith. We found that he was guilty because of the minutia on fingerprints, the blood typing, the footprints, and the blood spatter found at the scene.
In conclusion, as part of the prosecution team, we believe that Anton Geisler committed the crimes against Rebecca and Alexander Smith. Anton Geisler's fingerprints are found at the crime scene, footprints, hair strands, along with blood, all pointing to the direction that he was there at the time of the crime. Looking back at Anton Geisler's history, we can see that he has a history of crime. Back when he lived in Germany, he killed someone. So what is to say that he is not capable of murdering someone yet again? He's moved to a new town. He has a new identity. No one knows who he is. He knows that the Smiths are wealthy. He wants their money. He is antagonized by Mr. Smith for not speaking English, so he has this pent-up anger. Because of all of this, we conclude that Anton Geisler murdered Rebecca and Alexander Smith.
Hi, my name is Sarah Rance, and today I will be defending my client, Anton Geisler. As for opening statements, Anton Geisler came here from Germany not too long ago. He's new to the United States, and the reason he came to the United States was to start new. He wanted to succeed. He wanted to work hard to get where he wanted to be. And if you look at him and you think that he is the murderer of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, well, ask yourself, what would be his motive? Exactly. There is no reason for my client to have murdered Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They paid him good money. He had a great job coming out of Ellis Island. there would be no reason and no motive for him to have murdered Mr. and Mrs. Smith. For my final statement defending the accused, Anton Gessler, I would like to dive into the evidence presented today. I believe that all the evidence presented today is completely circumstantial. None of it is 100% incriminating that it was Anton Gessler who committed these dual murders. In the case of the fingerprints, yes, Anton's fingerprint was found on the hammer, along with Henry Bowers, both farmhands who would be working with these tools. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was in the hands of Anton Gessler and he murdered them. That isn't 100% incriminating. It's all circumstantial. The same could be said for Henry Bauer in his case. It is not out of the ordinary for a tool to have the fingerprints of the people whom use the tool around the house doing the work that they are paid to do. In the case of the hair, Anton Gessler lives in this house, so it wouldn't be a wild thought if his hair was found around the home, as it was. I'm sure in your home you have your own hair fibers around your house, so it's not something that is like crazy idea. His hair was going to be found in the home which he lives, and that is the Smith's farm. In the case of the footprints, he is doing work around this farm. Like I've said, he lives on this farm, so it wouldn't be so shocking for his footprint to indeed be found on the property of which he works and lives. In the case of the blood, as Anton has said, he sustained an injury doing farm work, which is completely ordinary. Nothing out of the ideal. He's doing intensive labor, so of course he would probably sustain an injury. And because he lives there and works around the house, yes, his blood would probably be found at the home. It is not a crazy idea. If he sustains an injury, he comes into where he lives, and yes, he probably would create a blood trail in the home. Lastly, motive. There is no logical motive for Anton Gessler to commit these murders. You might have said, well, he wanted money, he wanted the wealth, but that doesn't make sense considering that all of the valuables and all of the cash money that was in the Smith's home remained where it was. If you're saying his motive was to have a financial gain after this, well, it wouldn't make sense, and that wouldn't add up considering that none of the money or anything was gone. The people who murdered the Smiths didn't want anything from it. It wouldn't make sense to say that Anton did it because he had no motive, no proper motive, along with the fact that all of the evidence today was circumstantial considering he lives and works around the house. And to bring it all together, going back to the injury sustained, Henry Bauer had an injury and scratches and scrapes all over his hands. That seems particularly interesting because if you're working on a farm, or actually specifically if you're committing a murder, you would probably be having scratches on your hands and arms from fighting or getting in a tussle, not having a knee injury from committing a murder. But in conclusion, all of the evidence presented today is completely circumstantial and not 100% convicting that my client, Anton Gessler, had committed these dual murders. Therefore, Anton is innocent and did not commit these murders and cannot be convicted because, like I've said, the evidence presented here today is all circumstantial and not 100% convicting that my client had committed these murders. Thank you.